In July 1518, in the city of Strasbourg, a woman named Frau Troffea walked into the street and began to dance. Nobody asked her to. No music was playing. There was no celebration, no festival, no reason visible to anyone watching. She simply began to move, arms swinging, feet stepping, body twisting, and she did not stop. For 4 days straight she danced, then 6, then a full week. Her feet bled through her shoes, her legs swelled, her body was giving out beneath her, but still she kept moving. She could not stop. She physically could not stop. And by the time city officials finally noticed something was deeply wrong, something far worse had already begun. Other people had joined her, not by choice, not in celebration. They had simply started dancing, and they could not stop either. Within a month, 400 people were dancing in the streets of Strasbourg, uncontrollably, desperately. Some of them were crying as they danced, some were screaming, some were begging for someone to make it stop. And historians estimate that during the peak of what we now call the dancing plague of 1518, people were dying at a rate of 15 every single day. Not from a disease, not from a weapon, not from anything medicine at the time could identify or explain. From dancing. So we have got some important questions to answer. What actually happened in Strasbourg in the summer of 1518? Why did city authorities make a decision that almost certainly made things dramatically worse? What are the serious theories that historians and scientists have proposed, and why does every single one of them fall short? And most unsettling of all, could something like this happen again? Because the answer to that last question is not as comforting as you might hope. To understand what happened in Strasbourg, you have to understand what Strasbourg was in 1518. This was not a peaceful, prosperous city. The summer of 1518 followed years of devastating famine across the region. Smallpox had been tearing through the population. People were starving in the streets. The social fabric of the city was under a level of pressure that most people alive today have never experienced and cannot fully imagine. The population was not just poor, it was desperate, exhausted, and living in a state of permanent fear about whether they or their children would survive the winter. And into that pressure cooker walked Frau Troffea, moving without music, without reason, without stopping. The city authorities faced an immediate decision about what to do, and here is where history records one of the most catastrophic misreadings of a crisis ever documented. Local physicians examined the afflicted dancers and concluded, based on the medical understanding of the time, that the dancing was caused by hot blood. Their recommended treatment was not isolation, it was not rest. Their recommended treatment was more dancing. The city actually hired musicians. They cleared a space. They brought in professional dancers to accompany the afflicted. They built a stage. The thinking was that if hot blood was the cause, the dancers needed to exhaust it out of their systems. The cure, they decided, was to give the disease exactly what it demanded. The number of people dancing tripled within days. By August, the crisis had reached a scale the city could no longer ignore or manage. The stage was dismantled. The musicians were sent away. The afflicted were loaded onto carts and taken to a shrine in the mountains where religious authorities attempted to pray the dancing out of them. Some recovered. Many did not. And by September, as mysteriously as it had started, the dancing plague faded. Frau Troffea was never seen in historical records again. And nobody, not then and not now, has ever produced a complete explanation for what happened. Here is where the serious theories begin, and where each one, examined closely, leaves something important unexplained. The first theory is ergot poisoning. Ergot is a fungus that grows on damp grain, exactly the kind of grain that would have been stored through a famine year in 1518. When consumed, ergotism causes convulsions, muscle spasms, and hallucinations. It has been blamed for everything from the Salem witch trials to medieval visions of demons. On the surface, it fits. Contaminated grain in a famine city, mass convulsions that look like dancing, compelling. Except, ergot poisoning causes convulsions, not coordinated movement. The afflicted in Strasbourg were not seizing, they were dancing. Observers described rhythmic, purposeful movement, people forming groups, moving together, gesturing. Ergot does not produce that. It produces collapse. The theory explains the convulsions, but not the choreography. The second theory is mass psychogenic illness, what was once called mass hysteria. This is the theory most seriously supported by modern researchers, including historian John Waller, who has spent years studying the 1518 event specifically. The argument is that under extreme psychological stress, famine, plague, fear, grief, the human nervous system can produce genuine physical symptoms with no organic cause. The body believes it is compelled to move. The compulsion is neurologically real, even though there is no external pathogen causing it. This theory is supported by the fact that mass psychogenic illness is documented throughout history and continues to occur today. In 2011, a group of teenagers in Leroy, New York, simultaneously developed uncontrollable twitching and verbal outbursts with no identified physical cause. In 2006, hundreds of students in a Portuguese school developed rashes and dizziness after watching an episode of a television drama featuring those exact symptoms. The nervous system, under sufficient pressure, can generate real symptoms from nothing but shared fear. But mass psychogenic illness typically spreads through sight and sound, through witnessing the afflicted and unconsciously internalizing the symptoms. It spreads through social networks, and crucially, it typically stops when the sufferers are separated from each other and from the original trigger. Strasbourg's authorities did the precise opposite. They gathered the dancers together and gave them an audience. They made the symptoms public, visible, and social. If mass psychogenic illness was the mechanism, the city's response was the accelerant. Which brings us to the theory that sits underneath all the others, and that no researcher has been able to fully dismiss. That Frau Troffea and those who followed her were not ill in any conventional sense, that they were performing, consciously or unconsciously, a desperate act of release, that in a city where people were starving and dying and forbidden by religious and social codes from expressing their terror, the body found another way. Dancing was not the symptom. Dancing was the only language left that the body had to express something language itself could not carry. That theory has no clean scientific test. It cannot be confirmed or denied with data, but it is the one that historians who have spent the most time in the primary sources keep returning to, because the dancing did not look like suffering from the outside, not at first. It looked like grief made visible, like the body trying to shake something out that the mind had locked in. Here is the part that should stay with you. Every serious condition that the dancing plague of 1518 required already exists in the modern world. Mass psychogenic illness is not a medieval phenomenon. It is documented in schools, factories, and communities every decade. Social contagion spreads faster now than it ever has, carried not by proximity, but by screens. The psychological pressures of economic collapse, pandemic fear, and social fracture are not ancient history, they are present tense. The dancing stopped in Strasbourg in September 1518. Nobody knows exactly why. Nobody knows exactly why it started. Nobody has ever stood in front of a camera or published in a journal and said with confidence, this is what happened, and this is why it will never happen again. 500 years later, the city of Strasbourg still has no answer, and neither do we.